Can you guys hear at all, or am I like, is there anything happening? Because we only have a few minutes, and for whatever reason, my microphone got disconnected.
I can hear your mic now.
Is it everything's good now? More or less, more, less, more. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. So, what's going on with this PS5 event is they're gonna reveal the system, probably do some product specs, and some other stuff. I'm sorry, I'm pretty ticked right now. I might not have been paid for my other channel that I've been reworking on for the past like 3 months, and it's been kind of affecting my bottom line. And I think my network did it all sneaky like that. I haven't noticed. Like they take a percent, but even if they took 30%, which they're not allowed to, they're only supposed to take 95 or 90%. I'm still missing quite a bit, and it's been like that for a while. So kind of going crazy a little bit. So sorry, I just kind of found out about that. YouTube gave a notice to people and said they probably weren't going to be paid, and then I got paid, but I didn't get paid what I was supposed to get paid, or would have been paid for one channel. So I'm just kind of like, ah. And now I got this PlayStation thing to do, so I'm just kind of losing my mind a little bit. But anyway, so PlayStation event happening in 5 minutes. And I am as pale as a ghost. So this is why I hate webcams, because the sun. It's just Irish people just I don't know, whatever this is. It's like the Portuguese side can't be dark enough for me that I glow. Look at this. I'm glowing. And this is with the shade shut, you know? Right. So anyway, I want to know your guys' predictions. What do you think is going to happen with this event? Is this just going to be specs? Is this going to be games? Are they going to do anything interesting because of the whole E3 thing being canceled? I kind of want to know what you guys think, because, I'm just kind of like, I think it's just going to be hardware, personally. Maybe we'll get a price. I think they might change things up a little bit because E3 was canceled. But also, I believe that because this is a premiere, this was already recorded a while ago, so there's not going to be any new information. And nothing against premieres. I run premieres all the time. I love premieres because of the interaction with you guys, the viewers, and stuff like that. So I can talk to you guys live if I want to while a video is playing back. Also, I can watch a video and make sure there's no errors with it when it went up. But yeah, this is turning out to be a pretty exciting day. Not really.
People are excited about backwards compatibility. They want to see.
Yes, I keep hearing about that, the backwards compatibility. So being able, since the system's releasing what, on the 30th anniversary of the PlayStation or something like that, or 25th. It's a big deal. So it's supposed to be backwards compatible with a ton of PlayStation past systems. Although I don't know how that's really going to work, but from what I've seen of the system, it kind of looks like a giant VCR. So it's just kind of like, okay, why not? I mean, the thing is huge. I'm going to have to get an entire... I've been using an entertainment thing for so long, shy of a decade. It fits my PS4, my home theater thing, my Wii, my Switch. And now it's probably... I mean, I'm going to have to remove a few systems from there just so the PS5 thing can fit, if it's really that big. I'm hoping it's not that big, but the thing looks huge. I can't even fit my Xbox One thing, which I hardly ever use, underneath my entertainment thing. I know, first world problems. There's so many things going on. But it's like, that's small violin. Oh my gosh, I'm glowing. I must have some type of disease. Look at this. This vampirism.
Vampire disease?
Vampire disease. Yes, I'm glowing. I'm like one of those Twilight vampires. This is disturbing.
I can't be on camera right now because my face is red.
Yeah, Amber's face is red. Also, I changed up the mic setup and things like that. People have complained when I do webcam stuff. They're like, why do you do stuff so far away? It's like, I didn't know how to zoom in. I learned how to zoom in, so there you go. You get to see my curly beard face.
Wait, you're actually zooming in now?
I'm able to zoom in now, yeah.
I can see you now.
Yeah, people can see me.
I kind of like that better.
I do. Well, I mean, I like...
I need like a little background.
I have my background.
It looks like our living room is tilted, like we're in an earthquake.
How do I straighten it? I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean,
The reason why it's tilted is because our computer is at an angle.
Something's at an angle, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. So yeah, I'm I'm annoyed because I think I haven't been paid, or I've been paid, but I haven't been paid what I make because, you know, I have multiple channels. So when I work on one, I get paid for that one. When I work on the other one, I'm supposed to be paid for that one. And it doesn't look like it.
You've been working yourself so hard to make sure that we can pay all this stuff that the government is demanding, and it's like you've been working for nothing.
Oh, that's annoying.
It's more than annoying.
So if we didn't have PayPal, I'd be screwed pretty much. Or not PayPal, excuse me. If I didn't have Patreon, if I didn't have any patrons, we'd be in big trouble. Big. But that's besides the point. I hope you guys are having a good morning. Bah. Sorry for the little rant. I just found out, so I'm just... It's a New York thing, okay? New Yorkers are grumpy. When we find out something that doesn't, you know, mesh well, we rant about it for a few minutes. And I'm done. I'm ready for this whole PlayStation thing, but I'm just...
Ed says he would rather hear you complain about your consoles than read tweets from a guy complaining that swears reusing character models.
Oh, I'm super excited about Final Fantasy VII Remake. You know, we could... I mean, I don't want to play... not devil's advocate, but something strange. I mean, maybe we could get a tease for a Batman game now, but my thing is, I've been talking to people on Twitter, and it's like, I don't think you're really going to see that much because this is pre-recorded. This is not a live event. This was something planned that they were going to do in the spring. Whoa, there I go. Okay, that's me. I don't want to see me. Actually, you know what? I don't look too bad. A little pasty, but yeah, could be worse. Could be worse. And we're just waiting for the premiere to start now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna be on. Look, what are you doing?
You're not gonna show up.
Camera. No, I don't want to, because I'm going to the store soon.
Was I supposed to make a grocery list?
And I was gonna ask you what you want, but I'm just gonna go really quick out to the store and come back.
We need garbage bags. We need. We have cereal.
I'm not going to be on camera right now because I'm just definitely not presentable. I was basically wearing pajamas for like 3 days, just going to school from home. So, yeah, I'm going to school from home, and I had to do I'm done. So, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I hope you guys have a great live stream.
Is this starting? Yeah, thanks. All right, we're going. Yeah, see, look, this is a premiere. It's a premiere. Oh, I love that. That's great. No, we have toilet paper. We've got at least a month's supply of toilet paper. TMI, people. TMI. Oh, that's kind of loud, actually. I love the fact that this is a premiere. It's funny. So that means, yeah, this is all pre-done. Am I going to wear my headphones? I don't know. Maybe. I might even play my Switch while I wait. So tomorrow, if you guys are into it, on my channel, which I'm being paid for, K-Wings Let's Plays. Ah, there's the rant again. I'll be doing Animal Crossing at 10 a.m., the new one, because I have an international copy, so yay. Although I don't play Animal Crossing in nice, happy ways, so just keep that in mind. Kind of a grump. Oh, I love watching premieres. Look at me! I'm reacting to a premiere! Eh, that's something. Actually, I have to teach my dad how to do live streaming stuff now. Well, I mean, I don't have to. He hasn't really offered, but... Yeah. Well, I sent him the stuff that he needs to do it. So yeah, we need garbage bags, sweetie, and, yeah. Maybe some of those, like, plastic rub things if you can find them. No, you can get gummy bears. The gummy bears, yeah. No. Garbage bags.
We don't have any dishwashing, so.
Yeah, we do. Oh, wait, no, we don't. Some of that. Oh, here we go! Whoa, I gotta move myself.
We had to cancel the talk that we had.
The road to
PS5.
PS5.
But we
There's people there!
Some super exciting news about PS5.
No, they're not.
There's more than 10 people at that event.
To bring that to you, the one and only Moxie.
No, they're not.
Without further ado,
Yes,
over to you.
they are.
No, they're not.
Thank you, Jim.
Those are not real.
There will be lots of chances later on.
Oh, I don't have to move my face.
PlayStation 5 games. Today, I want to talk a bit about our goals for
What's
the
he saying?
PlayStation 5 hardware
Is there subtitles?
and how they influenced the development of the console. I think you all know I'm a big believer in console generations.
I actually have to put
Once every
headphones on. I
5
can't
or
understand
6
what
or
he's
7
saying.
years, a console arrives with substantially new capabilities. There's a lot of learning by the game developers, hopefully not too overwhelming, and soon there's games that could never have been created before. Now, it used to be that as a console designer, you'd somehow intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for the new console,
Bill
and then
Gates
build
was
it
like
in complete secrecy. For the PlayStation consoles,
taken by
that
aliens,
period lasted
probed,
through
and then
PlayStation 3,
pieced back
a
together to
powerful
look
and
human.
groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around 3 principles. The first of these is listening to the developers.
Okay, I was right. They're just doing hardware.
A lot of what we put into a console derives directly from the needs and aspirations of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic games. Which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do to make life easier for the game creators or help them realize their dreams, we will do. So, about once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry. I go to the various developers and publishers, sit down, and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future.
They're streaming in mono.
This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100 people at something like 24 publishers and developers. And it is incredibly valuable.
It's one channel sound.
The feature most requested by the developers, that was an SSD, which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required. I'll be doing a deep dive on the SSD and surrounding systems later on in this talk. It's also key to make a generational leap while keeping the console sufficiently familiar to game developers. I think about this in terms of balancing evolution and revolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was a revolution each time with a brand new feature set. That was great in many ways, but time for the developers to get up and running got longer with each console. In the past, I've called this time to triangle. Here's what I had for those 3 consoles. To be clear, I'm not talking about time to make a game. Developers will be ambitious, and it may take them 6 years or so to realize their vision. What I'm talking about is that dead time before graphics and other aspects of game development are up and running.
We've already hit the graphical ceiling. What are you talking about?
On the other hand, if we're trying to reduce that dead time to 0, that means the hardware architecture can't change at all. We're handcuffed. We need to judge for each feature what value it adds and whether it's worth the increase in developer time needed to support it. So with PlayStation 4, we were able to strike a pretty good balance between performance and familiarity. We got required learning back to PlayStation 1 levels.
I do like my
PS5,
PS4.
the GPU was definitely the area we felt the most tension between adding new features and keeping
No, honey, this is stuff that was supposed to happen at GDC.
Ultimately, I think we've ended up with something under a month of
GDC got canceled, I think.
That feels like we're striking about the right balance. I'll go into a bit more detail later today about our philosophy with the GPU and the specific feature set that resulted from it.
Alright, then I'll do ASMR.
It's also very important for us, as the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are other areas in which we can innovate and provide significant value to the game creators, and through them, the players. That's why the SSD was very much on our list of directions to explore, regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly improved audio, and in particular 3D audio, isn't something that came out of the developer meetings. It's much more the case that we had a dream of what might be possible 5 years from now, and then worked out a number of steps we could take to set us on this path.
Mine.
So here again are the 3 principles. The first being enabling the desires of developers to drive the hardware design. To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation. It's a game changer. And it was the #1 ask from developers for PlayStation 5. As in, we know it's probably impossible, but can you put an SSD in it? That was a discussion we were also having internally. It was clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speeds were now possible. At the same time, though, in 2015 and 2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive, and a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds. I want to focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes a second, depending on where the data is located on the hard drive. Let's assume it's on the outer edge, which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds. If you compress your game packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc and also effectively boost your hard drive read speed by the compression ratio. We support zlib decompression on PlayStation 4 that gets you something like 50% more data on the disc and 50% higher effective read speed. Unfortunately, though, it's highly likely that your data is scattered around in various files on the hard drive, as well as sourced from multiple locations within those files. So lots of seeks are needed at 2 to 50-ish milliseconds each. My rule of thumb is that the hard drive is spending 2/3 of its time
language is he speaking?
and only 1/3 of its time actually loading data. Putting all of that together, a gigabyte is very roughly 20 seconds to load from a hard drive. Now, a gigabyte is not much data. Games are using 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM on PlayStation 4, so boot times and load times can get pretty grim. Or to put that differently, as a player, you wait for the game to boot, wait for the game to load, wait for the level to reload every time you die, and you wait for what is euphemistically called fast travel. And all of that leads to the dream. What if we could have not just an SSD, but a blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5 gigabytes a second,
this is going to be
what would
expensive.
change? Now, SSDs are completely different from hard drives. They don't have seeks as such. If you have a 5 gigabyte a second SSD, you can read data from 1,000 different locations in that second, pretty much at speed. As for time to load a gigabyte, this is next gen we're talking about, so memory is bigger. Instead, we should be asking how long to load 2 gigabytes. And the answer is about 1/4 of a second. I mean, that's amazing. We're talking 2 orders of magnitude, meaning very roughly 100 times.
In layman's term,
which means
much
5 gigabytes
faster.
a second for the SSD. The potential is that the game boots in a second. There are no load screens. The game just fades down while loading a half dozen gigabytes and fades back up again. Same for a reload. You're immediately back in the action after you die. And fast travel becomes so fast it's blink and you miss it. As game creators, we go from trying to distract the player from how long fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly fast that we might even have to slow that transition down.
You're
Pretty cool, right? But for me, this is not the primary reason to change from a hard drive to an SSD. The primary reason for an ultra-fast SSD is that it gives the game designer freedom.
What?
Or to put that differently, with a hard drive, the 20 seconds that it takes to load a gigabyte can sabotage the game that the developer
So fast your
is trying
time
to
travel.
create. I think almost all of us in the room have experienced this, maybe in different ways. Say we're making an adventure game and we have 2 rich environments and each want enough textures and models to fill memory. Which you can do as long as you have a long staircase, an elevator ride, or a windy corridor where you can ditch the old assets and then take 30 seconds or so to load the new assets. Having a 30-second elevator ride is a little extreme. More realistically, we'd probably chop the world into a number of smaller pieces and then do some calculations with sight lines and run speeds like we did for Haven City when we were making Jak 2. The game is 20 years old, but not much has changed since then. All those twisty passages are there for a reason. There's a whole subset of level design dedicated to this sort of work, but still, it's a giant distraction for a team that just wants to make their game. So when I talked about the dream of an SSD, part of the reason for that 5 gigabyte a second target was to eliminate loads, but also part of the reason for that target was streaming. As in, what if the SSD is so fast that as the player is turning around, it's possible to load textures for everything behind the player in that split second? If you figure that it takes half a second to turn, that's 4 gigabytes of compressed data you can load. That sounds about right for next gen. Anyway, back to the hard drive. Another strategy for increasing effective read speed is to make big sequential chunks of data. For example, we might group all the data together for each city block. That removes most of the seeks, and the streaming gets faster. But there's a downside too, which is that frequently used data is included in many chunks and therefore is on the hard drive many, many times. Marvel's Spider-Man uses this strategy, and though it works very well for increasing the streaming speed, there's a massive duplication as a result. Some of the objects like mailboxes or news racks are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data is duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc. And you end up with hard limits on the player's run speed or driving speed. The player can't go faster than the load speed from the hard drive. And finally, I'm sure many of you have noticed that after a patch download, the PlayStation 4 will sometimes take a long time to install the patch. That's because when just part of a file has been changed, the new data can be downloaded pretty quickly. But before the game boots up, a brand new file has to be constructed that includes the changed portion. Otherwise, every change would add a seek or two. Even so, you can occasionally see this happening on game titles. They start to hitch once they get patched enough. With an SSD, though, no seeks, so no need to make brand new files with the changes incorporated into them, which means no installs as you know them today.
You do your thing.
There's yet one more benefit, which is that system memory can be used much more efficiently. On PlayStation 4, game data on the hard drive feels very distant and difficult to use. By the time you realize you need a piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used. On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD is very close to being like more RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize you need a piece of data, you can just load it from the SSD and use it. There's no need to have lots of data parked in system memory waiting to potentially be used. A different way of saying that is that most of RAM is working on the game's behalf. This is one of the reasons that 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 feels right for PlayStation 5. The presence of the SSD reduces the need for a massive intergenerational increase in size. So, back to the dream of the SSD. Here's the set of targets. Boot the game in a second. No load screens. Design freedom, meaning no twisty passages or long corridors. More game on the disk and more game on the SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that the SSD is just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of places where bottlenecks can occur in between the SSD and the game code that uses the data. You can see this on PlayStation 4. If I use an SSD with 10 times the speed of a standard hard drive, I probably see only double the loading speed, if that. For PlayStation 5, our goal was not just that the SSD itself be 100 times faster. It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every single potential bottleneck needed to be addressed. And there are a lot of them. Let's look at check-in and what happens when its overhead gets 100 times larger. Conceptually, check-in is a pretty simple process. Data is loaded into system memory from the hard drive or SSD. It's examined. A few values are tweaked to check it in, and then it's moved to its final location. At the SSD speeds we're talking about, that last part, moving the data, meaning copying it from one location to another, takes roughly an entire next-gen CPU core. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If all the overheads get 100 times larger, that will cripple the frame rate as soon as the player moves, and that massive stream of data starts coming off the SSD. So to solve all of that, we built a lot of custom hardware, namely a custom flash controller and a number of custom units in our main chip. The flash controller in the SSD was designed for smooth and bottleneck-free operation, but also with games in mind. For example, there are 6 levels of priority when reading from the SSD. Priority is very important. You can imagine the player heading into some new location in the world and the game requesting a few gigabytes of textures. And while those textures are being loaded, an enemy is shot and has to speak a few dying words. Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately. On one side, that flash controller connects to the actual flash dies that supply the storage. To reach our bandwidth target of 5 gigabytes a second, we ended up with a 12-channel interface. 8 channels wouldn't be enough. The resulting bandwidth we have achieved is actually 5.5 gigabytes a second. With a 12-channel interface, the most natural size that emerges for an SSD is 825 gigabytes. The key question for us was, is that enough? I mean, it's tempting to add more, but Flash certainly doesn't come cheap, and we have a responsibility to our gaming audience to be cost-effective with regards to what we put in the console. Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at the play patterns of a broad range of gamers. We examined the specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that set of games would fit properly on the SSD. We were able to establish that the friction caused by reinstalls or redownloads would be quite low, and so we locked in on that 825 gigabyte size, while also preparing multiple strategies so that those who want more storage can add it. I'll go through the details in a moment. Back to the flash controller. On the other side, it connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4 PCIe. And inside the main custom chip is a pretty hefty unit dedicated to I/O. Before we talk about what that does, let's talk compression for a moment. PlayStation 4 used zlib as its compression format. We decided to use it again on PlayStation 5, but on my 2017 tour of developers, I learned about a new format called
Xbox wins the console war this year.
It's like zlib's smarter cousin. Simple, similar types of algorithms, but about 10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on the UHD Blu-ray disc or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard. Half of the teams I talked to were either using it or getting ready to evaluate it. So we hustled and built a custom decompressor into the I/O unit, one capable of handling over 5 gigabytes of Kraken format input data a second. After decompression, that typically becomes 8 or 9 gigabytes, but the unit itself is capable of outputting as much as 22 gigabytes a second if the data happen to compress particularly well. By the way, in terms of performance, that custom decompressor equates to 9 of our Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken stream with a conventional CPU. There's a lot more in the custom I/O unit, including a dedicated DMA controller. The game can direct exactly where it wants to send the data coming off of the SSD. This equates to another Zen 2 core or 2 in terms of its copy performance. Its primary purpose is to remove check-in as a bottleneck. There's 2 dedicated I/O coprocessors and a large RAM pool. These aren't Zen 2 cores. They're there principally to direct the variety of custom hardware around them. One of the coprocessors is dedicated to SSD I/O. This lets us bypass traditional file I/O and its bottlenecks when reading from the SSD. The other is responsible for memory mapping, which I know doesn't sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers map and remap memory as part of file I/O, and this too can become
I can't miss this. The conference
There are
so exciting
coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably the biggest coherency issue is stale data in the GPU caches.
Can't hear him otherwise.
Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is an unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So we've implemented a gentler way of doing things, where the coherency engines inform the GPU of the overwritten address ranges, and custom scrubbers in several dozen GPU caches do pinpoint evictions of just those address ranges. The best thing is, as a game developer, when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this.
There's actually going to be a test at the end of this conference, and anyone who gets less than a 98% will not have the option to buy a PS5. That's what this whole thing is. Like, you have to know exactly. I certainly hope you guys were paying attention. I mean, that's why we do allow a replay. That's why this will be saved. You guys can watch it between 10 and 1,500 times to try to understand what he's saying.
That guy right there is sleeping.
Having said that, expandability of our SSD is going to be quite important. Flash is costly, and you may very well want to add storage to whatever you have to whisper. Console.
I don't want to whisper. This guy's already making it so ridiculous.
Depends on how you're going to use
Why don't you be his
If you have an
translator?
extensive PlayStation 4 library and you'd like to take advantage of backwards compatibility to play those games on PlayStation 5,
Yes, so here we have some specs about the VAHDD external HD 100 megabyte S5G PS5 SD blah 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 blah
Thanks
blah
for
blah
that.
blah blah.
Alright,
Blah, blah,
okay,
blah, blah, blah,
alright,
blah,
okay, I guess
blah.
we better listen to it.
Blah blah.
these are internal drives
you.
that you can get
I
on the
appreciate
open market
that.
and
Look,
install
I don't
in
see
a
the
bay
chat up
in the
anymore.
PlayStation 5.
I'll just check on my phone.
As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit, just like our
Alright, people
SSD
found that
does.
funny.
So they can take full advantage of the decompression,
Blah, blah.
I/O coprocessors, and all the other features I was talking
Is this guy the guy who was going to
Here's
speak
the
at
catch,
the huge
though.
conference
That
of
commercial
E3?
drive has to be at
Is this
least
how he
as
was gonna
fast as
talk?
ours.
He should just,
Games
like,
that
act as if he's
rely
at
on
the
the speed of our
conference.
SSD need to work flawlessly with any
This was
M2.
supposed to be a GDC thing.
When I gave the
What's a
Wired
GDC?
interview last
Game
year,
Developers
I said that
Conference.
the PlayStation
So,
5 SSD was
PowerPoint
faster than
presentations.
anything available on PC.
Why would
Talking
they
about
post
the
this
specs of the
online, though?
system.
M2
Because
drives
there's
use
no
PCIe
GDC.
3.0, and 4 lanes of
Oh,
that
so
cap
this
out at
isn't...
3.5
Oh yeah, E3
gigabytes a
hasn't even
second.
happened yet.
In other words,
E3 's
no PCIe
Oh,
3.0
E3 's
drive
canceled.
can hit the required spec.
This is GDC.
M2 drives with PCIe 4.0 are now out in the
I'm
market.
confused. I thought
We're
this
getting
was
our in
E3.
samples and seeing 4
This
or
is
5
GDC.
gigabytes a second from them. By year's end, I expect there will be drives that saturate.
Oh, he's
4.0
so excited about
with
saturating
4
drives.
GDC
gigabytes a
always
second.
is?
Having said
Uh-huh.
that, we are comparing apples and
Except
oranges.
they don't allow
because
switches in
that
GDC.
commercial M2
Why?
drive will have
Because
its own
you have to
architecture,
pay
its
attention
own
to what they
flash
do.
controller, and so on. For example, the NVMe specification lays out a priority scheme for requests that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice, but it only has 2 true priority levels. Our drive supports 6. We can hook up a drive with only 2 priority levels,
You were better
definitely,
off
but our
going to the
custom
store.
I/O unit
Maybe I
has to
should go to the
arbitrate the extra
store.
priorities rather
I
than the
somehow thought
M2
there was
drive's
a
flash
huge
controller.
error and,
And so
like,
the
this guy
M2
was
drive
called
needs a
in
little
because
extra speed to
maybe
take
somebody
care
else
of
got
issues
sick.
arising from the different
I'm just
configurations.
waiting for like
That commercial drive also needs
the
to
robot
physically
to like
fit
just
inside of the
be
bay we
like
created with
SSD,
PlayStation 5 for M2
SSD,
drives. Unlike internal hard drives,
S.
there's
He's breaking
unfortunately no
down!
standard for the height of an M2.
And then he comes back,
And
he's
some
like,
M2
hello
drives have
everyone,
giant
welcome back to
heat
my
sinks. In fact,
PlayStation
some of
5
them even have their
presentation.
own fans.
Today we'll be speaking
Right
about...
now, we're getting
I
M2
love how
drive
I
samples
like flipped to a few
and
other
benchmarking
people's
them in various
channels that
ways.
were doing this
When
because
games
I wanted
hit
to see if
beta
it was
they
as
get
quiet
ready
as
for
this, and it
PlayStation 5
is as
launch
quiet
in
as
year
this.
Yeah, I have-
we'll also
I have
be
the
doing
audio
some
maxed.
compatibility
That's why I'm
tests to
speaking
make sure that
quieter.
the architecture
But
of
I found this,
particular
I don't know
M2 drives
whose
isn't
channel
too
I was in,
foreign
but I
for
was
the
in
games
this
to
one
handle.
guy's channel,
Once we've
and
done
he was
that
literally
compatibility
kind of
testing, we
arguing
should
with
be
this
able
guy
to
in
start
his head.
letting
He's
you
like,
know
I disagree.
which drives
Like,
will physically
he was
fit
like, gamers
and which
enjoy
drive
these kind
samples
of
have
systems. He's
benchmarked
like, I
appropriately
disagree.
high
I think
in our
gamers
testing.
enjoy every kind of system.
It would be
And I was just
great
thinking,
if that
like,
happened by launch,
okay,
but it's
dude,
likely
like,
to be a bit
calm
past.
down.
So
Like,
please
it's just,
hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from
I
us.
don't know.
Okay, back to our principles. Balancing evolution and revolution is the second of them. This was definitely a recurring theme with the GPU.
Can I have
We
that polo,
need new
please?
GPU features and capabilities.
No.
If we only have more performance, it's not really a new generation of console. Of course, many of these capabilities result in more performance. That's part of why a PlayStation 5 teraflop is more powerful than a PlayStation 4 teraflop. But we aren't just looking for the performance. We also need the ability to do something with the GPU
Thank you.
that could not have been done before.
Like, there are people that...
And we need higher performance per watt.
This makes
Every
sense to
time
me.
we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed
let's try
and
this.
the heat produced.
They're gonna talk
At
about the
same time, we have to
GPU!
make sure the GPU can run PS4 games. And we have to make sure that the architecture is easy for the developers
It says
to adopt.
backwards
Now,
compatible.
backwards compatibility
Yes!
was handled masterfully by AMD.
Everyone,
they treated it as a
This is
key
what you
need
came
throughout
for.
the
Backwards
design
compatibility.
process. As our solution to adding new features without blindsiding developers, we made sure that if there were new significant features, it would be optional to use them. The GPU supports ray tracing, but you don't have to use ray tracing to make your game.
Just so you guys know,
The GPU
this
supports primitive
will
shaders,
be
but you can
available to
release
watch
your
later
first
in
game
case
on
you guys
PlayStation
need help
5
falling
without
asleep
making
later
any
on
use of it.
tonight.
Before I
this
get into the capabilities
in
of the
your
GPU,
headphones.
I'd like to make clear 2 points that
He
can be
wants to
quite
make clear 2
confusing.
points.
First, we have a custom AMD GPU based on their RDNA 2 technology. What does that mean?
That's my
AMD is continuously improving and revising their tech. For RDNA 2, their goals were, roughly speaking, to reduce power consumption by re-architecting the GPU to put data close to where it's needed, to optimize the GPU for performance, and to add a new, more advanced feature set. But that feature set is malleable, which is to say that we have our own needs for PlayStation, and that can factor into what the AMD roadmap becomes. So collaboration is born. If we bring concepts to AMD that are felt to be widely useful, then they can be adopted into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC GPUs. If the ideas are sufficiently specific to what we're trying to accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about, then they end up being just for us. If you see a similar discrete GPU available as a PC card at roughly the same time as we release our console, that means our collaboration with AMD succeeded in producing technology useful in both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony simply incorporated the PC part into our console. This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely on teraflops as an absolute indicator of performance, and CU count should be avoided as well. In the case of CPUs, we all understand this. The PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 each have 8 CPUs, but we never think that meant the capabilities and performance are equal.
the cardboard people
It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been getting much
No,
larger
they're
over time.
not.
Adding new features means adding lots of
There's
transistors.
no way they can
In fact,
His head just
transistor
moved.
count for
It's
the
not cardboard.
PlayStation 5 CU is 62%
That lady is sleeping,
larger
though.
than the transistor count
That
for
guy
the
is
PlayStation 4 CU.
Having probably a heart attack.
Second, the PlayStation
He's
5
twitching like this.
GPU is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. What does that mean? One way you can achieve backwards compatibility is to put the previous
Why are we
console's
talking about
chipsets in the
PS3?
new console, like we did with some PlayStation 3s.
They're talking about
But
how
that's
they're
of
gonna
course
make it backwards
extremely expensive.
Well, it's
A
giant
better way is to
VCRs.
incorporate any differences in the previous console's logic into the new console's custom chips.
Great.
Meaning that even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation 4 and
girl
PlayStation
moved.
4
They're not
Pro titles
cardboard.
rely on is still available in backwards compatibility
The audience
modes.
is dead.
One advantage of this strategy
guy
is that
look like Master
once
of
backwards
Disguise?
compatibility is in the console, it's
That's
in.
exactly
It's
what it
not
was
as
thinking
if
it looked
cost
like.
down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3.
Why am I
Achieving this
switched during
unification of
lecture? You can't prove
functionality
that.
took years of efforts by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly
you
massive
tell
this
me
time
there was a
around, and
really
some
important
game code
conference
just
you were gonna
can't handle
stream
it.
today? When is
Testing
that
has to
gonna
be done
happen?
on a title-by-title basis. Results are
This is
excellent, though. We recently took a look at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PlayStation 5. With regards to new features, as I said, our strategy was to try to break new ground, but at the same time not to
people can't
require
tell we're playing
use of the new
something.
GPU capabilities. For more than a decade, GPUs have imposed a restriction on game engines. Software handles vertex processing, but for the most part, dedicated hardware is responsible for the triangles and other geometry that the vertices form. That means it's not possible to do even basic optimizations, such as aborting processing of a vertex if all geometry that uses it is off-screen. PlayStation 5 has a new unit called the Geometry Engine, which brings handling of triangles and other primitives under full programmatic control. As a game developer, you're free to ignore its existence and use the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were no more capable than the PS4 GPU, or you can use this new intelligence in various ways. Simple usage could be performance optimization, such as removing backfaced or off-screen vertices and triangles. More complex usage involves something called primitive shaders, which allow the game to synthesize geometry on the fly as it's being rendered. It's a brand new capability. Using primitive shaders on PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including smoothly varying level of detail, addition of procedural detail to close-up objects, and improvements to particle effects and other visual special effects. Another major new feature of our custom RDNA 2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain a new specialized unit called the intersection engine, which can calculate the intersection of rays with boxes and triangles. To use the intersection engine, first you build what is called an acceleration structure. It's data in RAM that contains all of your geometry. There's a specific set of formats you can use. They're variations on the same BVH concept. Then, in your shader program, you use a new instruction that asks the intersection engine to check a ray against the BVH. While the intersection engine is processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersections, the shaders are free to do other work. Having said that, the ray tracing instruction is pretty memory intensive, so it's a good mix with logic-heavy code. There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines will run just fine on PlayStation 5, but it presents an opportunity for those interested. I'm thinking it'll take less than 1 million rays a second to have a big impact on audio. That should be enough for audio occlusion and some reverb calculations. With a bit more of the GPU invested in ray tracing, it should be possible to do some very nice global illumination. Having said that, adding ray-traced shadows and reflections to a traditional graphics engine could easily take hundreds of millions of rays a second, and full ray tracing could take billions. How far can we go? I'm starting to get quite bullish. I've already seen a PlayStation 5 title that's successfully using ray tracing-based reflections in complex animated scenes.
The use of ray tracing is very fascinating.
Another set of issues for the GPU involved size
This man
and
uses the
frequency.
same
How
hand
big do we
motions
make the
over
GPU,
and over
and what
again.
frequency do we run it
Perhaps
at?
he's not
This is a
human after
balancing
all.
act. The chip has a cost, and there's a cost for whatever we use to supply that
Oh,
chip
God, this
with
is
power
terrifying.
and to cool it. In general, I like running the GPU
Hello,
at higher frequency.
audience.
Let me show you why.
Are you not
Here's two
entertained?
possible configurations for a
Ah,
GPU,
yes,
roughly of the
more
level of the
CPU.
PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a
Brilliant.
thought experiment. Don't take these configurations too seriously.
It's
If you
a
just
joke.
calculate
Don't take this
teraflops, you get the same
presentation
number. But
seriously.
actually, the performance
I'm
is
not.
noticeably different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability
I think
of the
we all
vector
agree with the
ALU. That's
person
just
in the
one
chat
part
who
of the
said,
GPU. There are a
"Well,
lot
nobody
of other
cares
units.
to show us
And
the
those other
consoles and
units all
games
run
and the
faster when the
price."
GPU frequency is higher. At 33% higher frequency, rasterization goes 33% faster. Processing the command buffer goes that much faster. The L2 and other caches. have
If you're
that
not
much higher
excited about the
bandwidth, and so on.
L2, then
About the
stop
only
watching this
downside to that system memory
presentation.
is
I, for
33%
one, am
further away in
fascinated by
terms of cycles.
math.
But the large
numbers.
number of benefits more than counterbalance.
This is
As a
great
friend of mine says,
television.
a rising tide
Yes.
lifts all boats.
Thank you.
Also, it's easier to fully use 36 CUs in parallel
What?
than it is to fully use 48 CUs. When triangles are small,
This
it's
man
much
is
harder to
clinically
fill all those
insane.
CUs with useful
I
work.
should know.
So there's a lot to be
makes a
said
ton
for
of money.
faster, assuming you can handle the resulting
seriously
power
smart.
and
Either
heat
that or he's
issues,
baking
which
it this
frankly
entire
we
time.
haven't always done the best job at. Part of the reason for that is, historically, our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much electrical power games will consume and how much heat will be produced as a result inside of the console. Power consumption varies a lot from game to game. When I play God of War on my PS4
Although,
Pro,
I
I
think
know
we
the
all
power consumption is
kind of-
high just by the fan noise.
Yeah.
But power isn't
I don't
simply
think we're
about engine
technically allowed
quality.
to say in the
It's
chat
about the
that we wanna
minutia
shoot
of what's being
ourselves.
displayed and how.
'Cause-
It's counterintuitive,
just-
but
even though
processing
I'm sure we're
dense
all
geometry
thinking it.
typically consumes less power than processing simple geometry, which is, I suspect, why Horizon's map screen, with its low triangle count, makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much.
That's what I was thinking.
Our process on previous consoles
you
has
have a
been to try
question
to
from the
guess
chat.
what the
They're
maximum
wondering
power consumption during the
if the
entire
guy
console
talking is a
lifetime might be,
robot.
which is to say, the worst
I
case
don't
scene
know.
in the worst case game, and prepare a cooling solution that we think will be
Your
quiet
voice sounds the
at that
same as
power level.
Clayface and Harley Quinn
If we
TV
get
show.
it right, fan noise is minimal. If we
No.
get it wrong, the console will be quite loud for the higher power games, and there's even a chance that it might overheat and shut down
Wait,
if we miss
Ethan paid attention?
power
What?
too badly.
So it's not backwards compatible with
PlayStation 5
PS1
is
to 3,
especially
only
challenging
4? That
because the
sucks. That
CPU
freaking
supports
sucks. They better update
256-bit native
from 1 to
instructions
3.
that
Somebody in the
consume
chat
a lot.
understood something that was being
These are great
said.
here and there, but presumably only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for major 256-bit instruction usage, we need to set the CPU clock substantially lower.
I like this guy's quote.
Increase the size of the power supply.
When I play God of War, I don't think about all the specs, I think about getting kills!
Very different direction on PlayStation 5. We built a GPU with 36 CUs. Mind you, RDNA 2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4.
I mean, this is probably going to be like
hours. Transistor counts, 36 RDNA 2 CUs equates to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs. It is a fairly sizable GPU. Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode. We supply a generous amount of electrical power and then increase the frequency of GPU and CPU until they reach the capabilities of the system's
game developers
cooling
are. This is supposed to be GDC.
It's a completely different paradigm. Rather than running at constant frequency and letting power vary based on the workload,
This guy's not entertaining.
at
Like,
essentially
at least get like a Bob
and
Ross
let
guy up there.
frequency vary based on the workload.
You want to fries?
We then tackle the engineering challenge
give him a
of
fro.
cost-effective and high-performance cooling solution designed for that specific power level. In some ways,
should get
it
going
becomes
on
a
before
simpler
the
problem
crowds
because
get
there are
crazy,
no
'cause
more unknowns. There's no
grocery
need to
store's gonna be
guess what
packed.
power consumption the worst-case game might have. As for the details of the cooling solution,
I'm probably
we're
gonna take a
saving them
nap.
for our teardown. I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up
I
with.
don't think that's going to work.
So, how fast can we run the GPU?
Oh, how fast can you be running the GPU? That's what I want to be knowing.
Begora.
Begora.
Be to look at the actual temperature of the silicon
The
die
holly
and
greens, the
throttle
ivy
frequency on that
greens.
basis. But that won't work. It fails to
Won't
create
work?
a consistent
Did you hear that,
PlayStation 5
lads?
experience. It wouldn't do to run a console slower simply because it was in a hot room.
Can't wait for that guy to
So
start
rather than look at the actual temperature of the silicon die, we look at the activities that the GPU and CPU are performing. and
This
set
man
the
is killing
frequencies
my
on that
stream.
basis, which
I had
makes
700
everything
people, I have
deterministic
500.
and repeatable.
It's his
While
fault.
we're at it, we also use AMD's Smart Shift technology and send any unused power from the CPU to the GPU.
We're not
so it can squeeze
engineers.
out a few more
Give him a phone
pixels.
call and tell him to be more
Benefits of this strategy
I'm
are
dying here. I'm gonna
quite
just
large.
keep
Running a
spicing it.
GPU at 2 gigahertz was
As an
looking like
Irishman,
an
that accent is on
unreachable
point.
target with the old
I be
fixed
Irish
frequency
and
strategy.
Portuguese. So
With this new
I'm a
paradigm,
hybrid.
We're able to run way
Kick
over
me,
that.
I'm
In
Irish.
fact, we have to cap the GPU frequency at 2.23
I think it's time for more
so that
Bane
we can
presenter.
guarantee that the on-chip logic operates properly.
Love you too.
36 CUs at 2.23 gigahertz is 10.3 teraflops.
We expect the GPU frequency capped at 2.23 GHz and teraflops at 10.3. Main custom chip with PowerPoint presentations. CPU frequency capped at 3.5 GHz. If you don't pay attention to this, I will break you. I see you falling asleep over there. Don't make me come over there and slap you, for I'll do it. I may look like a thin, lanky man, but I am also very talented at Kung Fu. You just can't see that.
Significant gains for PlayStation gamers. The final of our 3 principles was about finding new dreams. It's important for us on the hardware team to find new ways to expand or deepen gaming, and that's what led us to a focus on 3D audio. As players, we experience the game through the visuals, through audio, and through the feedback we receive from the controller, such as rumble or haptics. Personally, I feel a game is just dead without audio. Visuals are, of course, important, but the impact of audio is
The only
huge
thing
as well.
dead is your
At the same time,
presentation.
the audio team on a
You've
game
killed
project has to do
everyone.
a lot with a little.
Congratulations.
For example, on PlayStation 4, there's fierce competition for the Jaguar CPU cores. Audio typically ends up getting just a fraction of a core. That's not much of a computational resource, particularly when you consider that the visuals run at 30 or 60 frames a second, but audio processing needs to happen at almost 200 times a second. So it's been tough going forward progress on audio with PlayStation 4, particularly when PlayStation 3 was such a beast when it came to audio. The SPUs inside are almost a perfect device for audio rendering. Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit. There's unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4. Probably the most dramatic progress in the PlayStation 4 generation has been with virtual reality. The PSVR hardware has its own audio unit. It supports about 50 pretty decent 3D sound sources. And this provided a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience. Not to oversimplify, but here were our goals
I like
for
that.
audio on PlayStation 5.
The PS4 sounds like a jet is about to take off. Now PS5 will sound as smooth as a normal plane taking off. Great.
The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to
Stop
pick and
slandering
choose
the
what sounds would
PS4.
get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound in the game to have dimensionality. And finally, we wanted to really take on the challenges of presence and locality. Now, when we say presence, we mean the feeling that you're actually there. You've entered the matrix. It's not, of course, something we thought we could perfectly achieve. The idea was that if we stopped using just a rain sound and instead used lots of 3D audio sources for raindrops hitting the ground at all sorts of locations around you, then at some point your brain would take a leap and you'd begin to have this feeling of real presence inside the virtual world of the game. This has the capacity to affect your appreciation of the game, just like music in a game does. The concept of locality is simpler.
Does that mean I'm going to have to run to the bathroom more when I hear water running?
To the right of you, behind you, above you.
Okay.
This can immerse you further in the game, and it can also directly enhance the gameplay. To use Dead Space as an example, I know, old school, you're fighting enemies in fairly dark, spooky locations. Back in the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right. But with 3D audio with good locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn and you take it out. So, how do we know where
That was the
sound
most
is
exciting
coming
part
from
of this
in the first
presentation.
place? Well, all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking. Based on what direction the sound is coming from, sound waves bounce around inside the ear, there's some constructive and destructive interference, and the result is a change in volume.
Why is your
The
presentation
phase
in
of the
just
sound
one
also
ear?
shifts, depending on what path the sound wave took to reach the ear
Should
canal.
be in both ears.
These volume changes and phase shifts are different for each direction and also vary depending on the frequency of the sound. Head size and head shape also impact the sound in a similar fashion. The way that the sound changes, based on direction and frequency, can be encoded in a table called the Head-Related Transfer Function, or HRTF. Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency. The horizontal axis is the direction, front, back, left, right, and the color gives the degree of attenuation of the sound at that frequency. The HRTF is as unique to an individual as a fingerprint is. In fact, you're looking at mine right now. Here's how we measure an HRTF. We've taken hundreds of people through this process. We put a microphone in the subject's left and right
I've given a
ear
name to my
and
pain,
then sit the
and
subject
it's this
down in the middle of an
presentation.
array of 22 speakers. We
I've
then play
gone
an
to
audio
hell
sweep from each speaker as we rotate
twice.
the subject. In the course of 10 or 20 minutes, we're able to sample the HRTF at over 1,000 locations. Using an HRTF when rendering audio creates unparalleled quality, but it's computationally expensive. The simplest way to use an HRTF is to process a sound source to make it appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 locations we sample. Unfortunately, the processing has to be done in frequency domain rather than time domain, so there's multiple fast Fourier transforms needed for every sound source for every audio tick. That's a lot of multiplies. This computational complexity was the determining factor for our strategy. It meant we had to bite the bullet and design and build a custom hardware unit for 3D audio.
Now, is this
We're
all
referring to the hardware
ad-lib, or is he
unit and
reading off a
proprietary
teleprompter?
algorithms we run on it as
That's what
Tempest
would be
3D
impressive.
audio tech. The meaning of 3D audio and technology should be pretty obvious here. As for Tempest, I feel it really reflects our goals with audio. It suggests a certain intensity of experience and also hints at your presence within it. We're calling the
Gonna
hardware
put some
unit
happy
that we
trees
built
in this
the Tempest
presentation.
engine. It's based on AMD's
Little happy
GPU
tree
technology.
here,
We
little
modified
happy
a
tree
compute
over
unit
here.
in such a way as
Needs
to
a
make
little
it
bit more
very
green,
close
too
to
much
the
blue in the
SPUs in
background.
PlayStation 3. Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest
I
engine has no
do.
caches, just like an SPU. All
Not.
data access is via DMA, just like an SPU. Our target was that it would have more power than a CPU, thanks to the parallelism that a GPU can achieve, and that it would be more efficient than our GPU, thanks to the SPU-like architecture. The goal being to make possible near 100% utilization of the CU's vector units.
I'm a good
Where we
person.
ended up is a
Why
unit
am I
with
being
roughly
tortured?
the same
I just want to see the
power and
system.
bandwidth as all 8 Jaguar cores in the PlayStation 4 combined. If we were to use the same algorithms as PSVR, that's enough for something like 5,000 sound sources. But of course, we want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like that number of sounds. It would have been wonderful if a simpler strategy, such as using Dolby Atmos peripherals, could have achieved our goals, but we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with licensed soundbars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 32 that Atmos supports. And finally, we wanted to be able to throw an overwhelming amount of processing power at the problem. And it wasn't clear what any peripheral might have.
This man's lung
inside.
capacity is incredible. How can you
In
talk
fact,
so long and
with the
not run out of
Tempest
breath?
engine,
Ask the
we
Micro
even got
Machine guy.
enough power that we can allocate some to the games.
He knows.
To the extent that games want to make use of convolution reverb and other algorithms that are either computationally expensive or need high bandwidth. But the primary purpose of the Tempest engine remains 3D audio.
This is how it happened.
Now, 3D
This is how
audio
the
is a major
PlayStation
academic research topic. It's
died.
safe to say that no one in the world has all of the answers. And the set of algorithms that has to be invented, tuned, or
I hate
implemented to
algorithms.
realize our vision for 3D audio is immense. For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making a sound source appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations. But for high-quality 3D game audio, we have to handle other possibilities. The sound source might not be at one of the 1,000 HRTF sample locations, so we have to blend the HRTF data from the closest locations that we have sampled. The sound source might be moving, which needs very special handling as that blend keeps changing, and that can cause phase artifacts in the resulting audio. Or the sound source might have a size to it, meaning it should feel as if it's coming from an area rather than a single point. There's also whole categories of approaches to be handled. 3D audio can be implemented using individual processing of 3D sound sources. But alternatively, ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics being somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer graphics. And finally, there's audio devices. The player might be using headphones or TV speakers or have a higher-end surround sound setup with 6 or more speakers, all of which need different approaches. That's a lot of variations. It's nice to have the computational resources of the Tempest engine, but it's clear that achieving our ultimate goals with 3D audio is going to be a multi-year, step-by-step process. Having said that, headphone audio implementation is largely complete at this time. It was a natural place for us to start. With headphones, we control exactly what each ear hears, and therefore the algorithmic development and implementation are more straightforward.
More audio.
For TV speakers and stereo speakers, we're in the process of implementing virtual surround sound. The idea being that if you're sitting in a sweet spot in front of the TV, then the sound can be made to feel as if it's coming from any direction, even behind you. Virtual surround sound has a lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but it's more complex because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have a basic implementation of virtual surround sound up and running. We're now looking at increasing the size of that sweet spot, which is to say, making the area you need to be in to feel the 3D
Virtual
effect
surround has been around
larger.
for
And we're also
15
working to boost
years.
the sense of locality. Headphone audio is the current gold standard for 3D audio on PlayStation 5, but we're going to see what we can do to bring virtual surround sound to a similar level, after which we'll start in on setups with more speakers, such as 6-channel surround sound. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games in development are extensively using these systems. One of the game demos allows you to toggle
Oh, a
between
game
conventional
demo?
PlayStation 4 style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference.
Wow.
3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional stereo audio feels smashed flat by comparison. The improvement is obvious. So, a big advancement, but have I entered the matrix? Does my brain believe I'm really there? Like I was talking about earlier when I explained our target of presence. Well, the answer is no, but you've probably caught on to what's missing here, namely whose HRTF was being used. It wasn't mine. It was the default HRTF.
Here we have more charts.
The audio team analyzed the hundreds that they measured and chose the one they felt was the closest fit to the total game-playing audience. This shows a piece of the default HRTF on the left and my HRTF on the right. You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details...
All right.
With the default HRTF, as I said, 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of realism.
It's going to cost $1,000.
That when using headphones and my HRTF, I occasionally get fooled and even think a sound is coming from the real world when it's actually coming from the game. A corollary to this is that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far from the default HRTF, that's the red dot here, that they can toggle between PS4 style and PS5 style audio and not sense much difference. I've had a few people describe the PlayStation 5's 3D audio as sounding like a bit better stereo audio. Presumably they're the ones at the very edges of this diagram.
That would be funny.
Which means what HRTF you're using is key. I'd like everyone to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, but obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big topics going forward as the Tempest technology matures. At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs. There's a simple test where you pick the one that gives you the best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended research topic. Maybe you'll be sending us a photo of your ear, and we'll choose a neural network to pick the closest HRTF in our library. Maybe you'll be sending us a video of your ears and your head, and we'll make a 3D model of them and synthesize the HRTF. Maybe you'll play an audio game to tune your HRTF. We'll be subtly changing it as you play and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score, meaning that it matches you the best. This is a journey we'll all be taking together over the next few years. Ultimately, we're committing to enabling everyone to experience that next level of realism. Hopefully, I've been able to illustrate a bit about our design and decision-making process today and why PlayStation 5 has the feature set that it does. Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set. I'm hoping for the completely unexpected. Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
What? What was that? That was GDC. They didn't even... I'm confused. Oh, thank you. Yeah, okay. I got nothing. And I just got done making my little mustache. I was gonna put on his face to make it more interesting. Yeah, so many other people have no idea what to say. They're just like, that was a reaction. That happened. Oh my gosh. Oh wait, I touched my face. I'm gonna become a zombie now. Awesome. I mean, they talked about sound and gigabytes. The only thing that my audience took away from this entire thing was, how do I put this? Backwards compatible just with the PS4 games, and that's it, or something, is kind of what he said. And he didn't really talk about how we were going to be wowed by the next visuals of stuff. It was just there's going to be more stuff. Like when you turn around and you're in a room, instead of it taking like a few seconds for the detail of the room to look nice or whatever, it'll automatically do that. And it's like, okay, so faster buffering or something? I don't know. And he talked about SSDs and a bunch of math. No console reveal. So this was all about, this was their GDC panel. This was for investors. This was people who care about stuff. I swear I saw the dude in the front row sleeping. And the lady, like, she might have been dead. Because, I mean, she started moving at the beginning of the presentation. And then she just stopped. No one seemed concerned either. I mean, I was more interested about what the crowd was doing. One guy's head just kind of looked like it was doing this the whole time. That way, you know, you didn't have to worry about it being cardboard. But he didn't move that quick. It was very subtle movements. Like just kind of, there we go. Just like that. You know. Just enough so that the guy knows he's awake. But I don't know. I don't know what to tell you people. This is why I don't cover GDC, because that. Oh my gosh, I feel like not only was my time wasted, but all your time was wasted. Because this is not what they've been telling people at all. Unless I'm missing something and there's going to be like another thing on PlayStation's thing, but I doubt it. Every person who's doing a reaction of this is just kind of blown away by the sheer... Oh, wait. Yeah, this was GDC. I just read their thing on their PlayStation blog. This was the panel for GDC. So, what does that mean? Nothing exciting. Alright. I couldn't do a reaction to this. I didn't... If it was the GDC panel, in all honesty, I wouldn't have done anything. There was so much misinformation going on about this. I think I had a lot of concerns when I noticed that it was a premiere. So this is the thing that they planned on showing at GDC. And yeah. So this was nothing. Nothing but a waste of time. Are there streams today? Yes, there's streams over on my other channel. Ha ha ha! Xbox One. Yep. Maybe PS5 has the virus. Oh, that's a hot take. That's a hot take, my friend. I don't know. This presentation needs more cowbell. You're able to get information from this? No. I basically reread my chat. I heard something about 3D sound, which, I mean, what is that going to do for people that have, like, problems with, being off balance, or whatever they call it? Like, if you have, like, balance issues or whatever, and you have, like, 3D sound, isn't that going to make people dizzy? Vertigo? What about people with vertigo? What's PS5 gonna do with people with vertigo? I don't even know why I'm wearing headphones. There was nothing going on at all, so there's really no point to that. Plot twist: PS5 actually is Skynet, and this dude was trying to prevent us from buying it. I have math dyslexia, so I was just lost. You weren't the only one. What did we learn today? Nothing. Nothing. We learned nothing. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I guess I'm gonna go salvage the rest of my day. Have some cereal again. Webcam works again, so maybe I'll do webcam for my Animal Crossing stream later. I don't know. Might stream Trials of Mana, the demo. I don't know. Can't really think what I want to do now. I'm awake. Wasn't awake before. I climbed out of bed for this thing. Just kind of like... So. Alright, so closing thoughts. Do you guys have any? Because I'm tapped out. Show, don't tell. You needed some excitement in my voice. Yeah, could you... IGN has a stream! You and your wife make good Arkham videos. Thank you. Why did he show us gameplay with the introduction? It would have made sense, yeah. You should include more webcam. Well, I'll show you what I was working on that I never got to post because it would have made things more interesting. But can we skip through this video a little bit? Just show people what this was Amber's idea. And just, I don't know, might have made the presentation a little bit more fun, but it's really stupid, but here we go. If the presentation would have lasted a little bit longer, then this would have happened. Where is it? There it is. So just yeah, that's a little much there.
Unit, one capable of handling 5 gigabytes of cracked
Yeah.
format.
That makes it better.
After decompression, that typically becomes 8 or 9 gigabytes. But the unit itself is capable of
see,
outputting as
but it
much
wouldn't.
as
You'd have to find a
22
way to have the
gigabytes a
mustache
second
follow him
if
wherever
the
he
data
goes.
happened to compress particularly well.
Yeah.
By the way, in terms
Okay.
of performance, that custom decompressor equates to
I'm sorry,
9
that would
of our
have
Zen 2 cores.
that'd have been
That's
more
what it would
interesting.
take to decompress.
All right. I can't think of anything else. Wait, what? Yeah. It's me, Mario. I'm here to do Sony's PlayStation performance thing. I'm gonna torpedo this so bad, so you're not going to understand anything about the PS5. It's good. Yes. It's got the 3D sound, and nobody cares about that. We don't have a game, so we've got the tech demo of all kinds of things. Yeah. We're PlayStation. We're gonna make expensive headphones that you have to purchase in order to get the system. Well, actually, the crazy rumor that I've heard about this that I'm terrified about is they're saying that it uses a new type of HDMI, so if you don't have that on your television, guess what? You have to buy a new TV. I hope that's not true because, I mean, I haven't bought a new TV probably 10 years. And I really don't want to either. Oh my gosh. But I mean, they didn't talk about anything that people really cared about. They were more on the lines of just GDC stuff, which is just all investor base. It's very boring. I had several offers to go to GDC several years ago, and I was like, I would probably fall asleep. So I never went to anybody's GDC. Because it's a game developers conference, so they're there to talk numbers, they're there to show pie charts. You know, it's just like a conference for job stuff. It's never supposed to be streamed, not like this. GDC was canceled, so they were like, you know what? We're just going to throw our PowerPoint presentation up, and this was exciting stuff for GDC, but not for gamers. So anyway, people, I'm done. I got nothing else. This is just insane. You missed pain and suffering. It was all just loading tech demo. No games or console or nothing. Yeah, so let's fix this because I don't want people to suffer. PS5 GDC event. There we go. There, now people will avoid this like the plague because I wouldn't want to watch this either. I saved some poor soul. PS5 GDC event. You're welcome. Alright. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go eat something. I hope you have a wonderful day. I don't know what I'm doing on this channel for a while. Mainly because I haven't been paid for it, probably. So, I'm probably going to stream something Arkham Origins related. I really don't want to do any bat news because the bat news is all just about the virus and people shutting down, and it's not really news. I mean, that's kind of a given that production is going to shut down for the Batman, and they're not really going to do much with the new Batman game until blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, there's really no point doing a lot of non-comic booky stuff until probably April. So, I mean, we'll have fun streams on Arkham Origins stuff. We'll do some comic book topics, because those will keep releasing without any issues. So, but you guys have a good one. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you at 3 o'clock for more My Hero 1 Justice on K-Wings Let's Plays. And I have an Animal Crossing stream there at 8 o'clock tonight. So, and I might even be streaming the demo of I forgot the name of that game already. Trials of Mana. All right. Later, people. Have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And stay safe, everyone. All right? Later.